You children don't have time to take care of your mother anymore. Those were the last words Margaret heard before the nursing home's door closed behind her. She stood in the middle of the small room, still holding an old cloth bag. Inside were a few sets of clothes, a family photo frame, and a savings book yellowed by time. Her 3 children left quickly. Not one of them looked back. They said this was the best decision for their mother. But deep down, Margaret understood the truth. She had not been brought here because of old age. She had been left behind because they believed she no longer had any value. Margaret once had a warm home in the suburbs. After her husband passed away, she raised 3 children on her own. She worked at a bakery in the mornings, took in laundry during the evenings, and never once let her children see her cry. For her oldest son, David, she sold her wedding ring to pay his college tuition. For her daughter Laura, whose marriage had fallen apart, she welcomed her back home and cared for her granddaughter for 3 years without a single complaint. And for her youngest son, Michael, the one who always claimed to love his mother the most, she quietly mortgaged her house to help him start his first company. But once her children built families of their own, she slowly became unnecessary. Family dinners became less frequent. Phone calls grew shorter. Simple check-ins turned into criticism. Mom, did you forget your medicine again? Mom, are you bothering us again? Mom, you need to understand, we have our own lives too. One Sunday afternoon, all 3 children unexpectedly came home. Margaret was so happy that she woke up before dawn to prepare David's favorite roasted chicken, Laura's childhood pumpkin soup, and the apple pie Michael had always loved. But no one ate much. David placed a stack of papers on the table. Mom, we've talked about it. We think you should move into a nursing home. The spoon in Margaret's hand froze. She looked at each of her children. Laura avoided her mother's eyes. Michael sighed as if he were the one being hurt. Margaret asked softly, "Did I do something wrong?" No one answered. David simply said that the house was too large for her, and that they could not keep taking turns caring for her forever. At that moment, she understood. They did not want to take care of her. They wanted the house. The nursing home was not a bad place. But it was cold, not because of the white walls or the long hallways, but because every evening, Margaret sat by the window staring at a phone that never rang. During the first week, she told herself her children were busy. During the second week, she told herself they needed time. By the 3rd month, she could no longer lie to herself. No one came to visit. Only a young nurse named Emily often stayed with her after work. Emily listened as Margaret spoke about the old days, about a kitchen filled with the smell of fresh baking, about 3 little children who once wrapped their arms around their mother and promised they would never leave her. One evening, Emily saw Margaret quietly wiping tears in front of an old photograph. She asked gently, "Would you like to call them?" Margaret gave a sad smile. "No, dear. When people truly miss you, they will come on their own." One day, attorney Thomas Hale appeared at the nursing home. He had been a close friend of Margaret's late husband. His visit surprised her. Thomas placed a file on the table. "Margaret, it's time for you to decide what to do with the house and the investment fund your husband left behind." Margaret remained silent for a long time. Very few people knew that before his death, her husband had left a substantial fortune in her name. The house her children were fighting over had never been transferred to anyone. For years, she had remained silent, not because she was weak, but because she wanted to know whether her children would still love her when she could no longer give them anything. The answer was now painfully clear. Margaret signed a new will. The entire house would be transformed into a support center for elderly people abandoned by their families. Part of her assets would be donated to the nursing home, and a special portion would be left to Emily, the young woman who had given her something her own children no longer could: genuine care. 6 months later, David, Laura, and Michael received invitations to their attorney's office. They believed their mother had finally agreed to divide her assets. David arrived in a tailored suit. Laura brought her husband. Michael had already prepared a plan to sell the house and pay off his company's debts. But when the attorney began reading the will, the room fell silent. The house was not theirs. The savings account was not theirs. Everything they believed they deserved disappeared within minutes. Laura burst into tears. Michael became furious. David slammed his hand onto the table. "Mom can't do this to us." At that moment, the door opened. Margaret walked in. Her hair was grayer than before. Her steps were slower than before. Yet there was a remarkable calmness in her eyes. She looked at the 3 children who had once been her entire world. Then she spoke. I didn't take anything away from you. I simply stopped giving things you never learned to appreciate. No one could say a word. A few months later, Margaret's old house had been renovated. A small sign hung by the entrance, the House of Peace. It became a home for elderly people who had been forgotten, mothers and fathers who had devoted their entire lives to their children, only to learn how to keep living after they were no longer needed. Margaret no longer sat waiting for the phone to ring. Every morning, she and Emily made tea, tended the garden, and shared stories with new friends. Someone once asked whether she hated her children. She simply smiled. A mother can carry heartbreak for a very long time, but one day, she must also learn to choose peace for herself. And sometimes, the greatest lesson children receive does not come from the inheritance their mother leaves behind. It comes from the moment they realize that the woman who loved them unconditionally also has the right to walk away in silence. If you have ever witnessed a story like this, leave a comment below. In your opinion, do children have the right to place their parents in a nursing home simply because they no longer want to care for them? And don't forget to subscribe for more family drama Reddit stories, Reddit family drama story content, and emotional dramatic storytelling.